So it's really great to be here today. I'm not excited to be the only person between you and a break, but hopefully I can go through this fairly quickly and give you some interesting things to think about. Now, if I think about being here today, thinking back to what I typically do day to day, I'm teaching classes, typically standing in front of a lot of students, and this is the last month in this semester, and everybody's really stressed, and I often get all these nasty looks from students when I'm standing in front of the class teaching, because they don't want another homework assignment or a project or their exam back. So it's really exciting to be in front of all of you, which is a much more larger group than I typically work with. And it's really nice to see such smiling faces and excitement and all of the exciting things that you all do on an everyday basis. So I'm excited to be working on that. And then I will be talking about the industrial sector. Now, when we were preparing for this, we were talking through different points and what I should be thinking about. And they said, well, you have a little bit of a challenging job because not everybody gets to see the industrial sector on an everyday basis. We're not typically in, you got it? Oh, you need help? Okay, all right. We're not typically in manufacturing spaces, or at least not everyone is. So when we think about this, I'm happy to try to address that challenge and give you some thoughts, because we are in 30 or more of these facilities every year. So let's think about, I don't know how this works. There we go. All right, so let's think about the industrial sector overall. It is a big portion of the challenges and a big piece of the puzzle that we work through in trying to address climate change. About 30% of the total emissions at the national level come from our industrial sector. This is a big portion, and that includes both the use of electricity and the emissions associated with that, as well as things that occur directly on site or our direct emissions. This is a big, important factor when we're thinking about how to solve climate challenges overall. Now, in the state of Michigan, if we zoom in to Michigan itself, Michigan greatly appreciates and has been a big part of the industrial efforts in the United States. It's one of the biggest sectors in terms of our economy, and it outgrows much of the United States in terms of growth in the industrial sector. And we want to encourage that. We want to be excited about that. We want investment in industry as we move forward. Now, what can we do to help encourage our industrial sector to move forward while also addressing reductions in our emissions? So first, we need to understand in Michigan what we're dealing with. About 14% of our emissions are directly occurring from the industrial sector right at the plants themselves. And that's from fossil fuel combustion, that's from specific other types of sectors, the metal industry, petroleum industry, chemical industry, minerals. So we have direct emissions and we have the use of electricity. Now, what can we do to try to come up with ways to reduce this? So we think about this. This is a nice figure from the Department of Energy that looks to the types of things that we can address in the industrial sector itself. Now, the national level efforts and the local efforts within the state of Michigan are quite similar in terms of challenges, in terms of opportunities. But there's really two things that we need to think about when we're looking at this. We can have all of the technology that we want to address these challenges, but if we don't actually adopt it, there's not much we can do to push forward our goals in terms of climate improvements. So we need to address both of these things. On the research side, we can work towards the more advancement of challenging technologies that we don't currently have, to bring those into commercialization, to support providing those technologies today that we need. We can use the existing technologies that we have to push forward what we already have available to us and put that into the industrial sector itself. But then we also need to convince or make a case to all of the companies that work here that this is a good idea, right? And so I'll try to speak to each of these different components as we look towards a solution here. So we, as the Industrial Assessment Center, we work in many different spaces throughout the state of Michigan, about 30 per year that we're in. And we ask everyone that we work with, what have you done already? And the exciting thing, or something that I think should inspire you all, is that those companies we do work with have already done things before we get there. They are already working on this, and that we can attribute to many different factors. It could be they've had other assessments done. It could be they have specific goals in mind. But something that should be inspiring, there is efforts to focus and support climate action in the industrial sector currently. Things are done even before we get there. And about 50% of the industrial sector right now in the United States has, based on surveys that have been done, has done something to help work towards emissions reduction and energy use reduction. So that should be exciting, right? It should be encouraging. In fact, if we look from 1990 to today, the energy use and the emissions associated with the industrial sector in the US have decreased about close to 20%. So it's a big thing that's happening. Now we need to push that further if we want to meet the goals of the Healthy Climate Plan and nationally as a country. So the other good news is, and something you should be excited about, when we go to these facilities, we walk around, we identify opportunities for improvements, we still see in the places that have already done things, we still find opportunities where we can improve things. And these are not things that are payback periods of 10, 20, 30 years. These are things that have short payback periods that could be done and pay back for themselves in less than a year or two. So this is just one example. These are all of the assessments that have been done through the Industrial Assessment Center program since 2010. And we see a range of different opportunities, the biggest ones often being heat recovery. You get the biggest bang for your buck there. And then we also see things like compressed air, lighting, HVAC. These are opportunities that exist with currently existing technologies today that can be addressed with easy payback periods to complete. And this only represents the companies that we've worked with, right? There's many, many more, and those are the people that we need to reach and help support. Next thing that should be inspiring, if you look at the opportunities for energy efficiency that exist today, there are many opportunities to manage the energy use of buildings beyond just what we do. So we've worked with companies that manage and look at the energy use of every piece of equipment in their facility, and they know how much this uses and how much that uses. And if you look at people that have implemented this type of energy management, just without changing any technology or changing any systems, they can achieve 10, 20% energy savings within a year or two. This is a great opportunity and something that, while it's not as popular here in the United States, it's something that's very popular in other countries and something we can work towards, managing our energy with the energy innovations that exist today. The other thing we can think about are things that are a bit beyond what currently exists or is widely adopted, things like low carbon fuel sources. Now in the state of Michigan, if we look at, this is for the Midwest region, you see here, if we look at what on-site directly creates emissions from the use of natural gas, we see process energy is typically where we're looking. So things that are associated with what's on the floor in an industrial facility and what can be used to help support reducing that. So if we are looking at opportunities to reduce our emissions on site, low carbon fuels, things like switching to biogas or renewable natural gas, say through the use of, at least in the state of Michigan, the largest opportunity is through, if you look at landfills, the gas that comes from landfills, that's one of the larger opportunities. Hydrogen, and then there's opportunities also for geothermal, for district energy use, for combined heat and power. And there are companies also already doing this that we can learn from. If there's something you've heard from the other speakers here today, it's that we can work together to share knowledge and share information that we can then use to decide and make decisions that we feel confident about. So we've worked with companies that have geothermal systems, that have combined heat and power, that use biogas. They're the people that know how this works, that we can learn from and move towards solutions in those areas. The next thing that should be inspiring, and just for a little personal story, right? Back when I first started working in this area, it was around 2007 or 2008. I was looking at some charts from the National Renewable Energy Lab about renewable energy and about solar in particular. They're saying, yeah, the cost is fairly high now, but it's going to decrease. I said, man, it's just really hard to believe. And you've watched it over time, and that has happened, right? As you heard from previous speakers, the cost and the availability of our solar panels, of wind energy, is something that's significantly improved in the past number of years. And so that should be exciting too. And the other interesting thing, when we ask companies, when we start off our assessment process, we ask them, are you interested in solar? Almost all, I'm not sure if it's 100%, but nearly all say, yes, we are, but we need to learn more about it. We need to understand it. We need to figure out how it could work for us. So there's your opportunity. There's your opportunity to start the process of understanding where the opportunities are for each of those companies and fit to what their needs are. So that should be exciting. Carbon capture. So this is something that also is in more of the development phase, but something where there has been studies done to evaluate within the state of Michigan where are there opportunities. So there's opportunities for either engineered carbon capture, so either capturing it and transporting it somewhere and reusing it for something else, or capturing it, storing it underground, similar to how you would have natural gas or petroleum, or the opportunity to have natural-based carbon capture, say through trees or storage in those areas. So there's opportunities here too. Now, why does this matter for the industrial sector? The industrial sector has challenges in terms of switching to things that are non-carbon intensive. There are processes that, at least based on current technology, we just can't quite switch out to be something that's not going to produce carbon. So what can we do? Instead of switching that process, we try to capture it at the end. So there's your opportunity to look into ways that, for challenging situations within the industrial sector that we can't otherwise decarbonize, there's an opportunity to look into this in the state of Michigan. So if those are the technologies that we have available, and certainly there's more, but if those are some of the key technologies that are available, the next part is, how do we get people to adopt these? How do we get companies to care and to make it happen? So I want to provide you a few insights, not from my own study, but from others, that within the state of Michigan, about what some of these challenges are, and a few key points to think about in trying to adjust those challenges. So this was a recent study done, surveyed, interviewed companies, industrial facilities throughout the state of Michigan. And they identified 5 different challenges, and I've slightly modified it here, but they identified 5 different challenges in the process of adoption of renewable or sustainable energy systems. And those are listed here, and what I'm going to do is talk through each of those and where are there some opportunities to address some of these challenges. So what are they? Lack of motivation, so people just aren't, or companies aren't thinking about the opportunities or needs for sustainability or renewables or energy efficiency. Second, funding. Cost is always a challenge. Third, workforce. We need more workforce. We need people that understand this, that are excited and help to implement. Fourth, we need objective insight. We need help. We need to collaborate with others to figure out where to go and feel confident in those decisions. So those are some of the challenges, not from me, but from survey and interviews of other companies. So what can we do to try to address those 4 challenges? Okay. First, motivation. So there's a figure with a whole bunch of text up there. What's the point of showing this up here? We ask in our pre-assessment process, why do you want an assessment done of your building, of your facility? And I think the interesting thing and the exciting thing is that while energy costs, carbon neutrality efforts are certainly part of that effort, there's also climate action plans and goals included in there. So it's not just that they want to reduce the costs of their facility, and that's not everybody, right? Some people say they just care about the cost, but many people care about climate action plans and climate action goals and trying to meet those. And that should be exciting because you see that beyond just caring about cost, which is what you might think of from the industrial sector, there's other things that are going on to help support efforts in this area, and those are coming out when we hear and talk to the companies. The next thing, so there's 2 graphs up here, And I want you to look at both of them. You can see they're quite different. They're both from companies that we've discussed and talked to in the state of Michigan. The one on the left, it represents generally overall the industrial sector. It should be fairly representative of what we see. And what you would expect, this shows the willingness or the payback period that is acceptable or preferred within that company to implement energy efficiency or other energy reduction opportunities. And you see that by and far you see a larger number of companies that are interested in the shorter payback periods. Makes sense, right? And we see that too, definitely. In the assessment processes that we follow, we see that and we hear that. Of course, shorter payback periods, shorter periods of time to get that money back are what we want to see. But the other exciting thing you should think about is that financial considerations, similar to what you saw in the last graph, financial considerations are not the only thing on companies' minds. Those things like corporate sustainability goals, other goals as well. So I think that should be exciting, that we aren't just looking at cost, we're also looking at other factors when we move towards making the financials and motivations happen. Workforce needs. Now, I'm a professor. I work with a lot of students every day. I teach students. I work with students within our Industrial Assessment Center program. And if one of the challenges in the industrial sector in implementing and making energy efficiency, energy improvements, and decarbonization happen is the workforce, I'd like to say to you all that there are many, many students out there that are just looking for a reason to be excited. They want somebody to motivate them. They want to learn about something, and they want to be excited to work on it. And if we can inspire these students, and they don't have to be MSU students, of course, right? We have many students, and they don't have to be even students at a university. It could be working professionals. The point being, if you can get those people and tell them about what we're working on in the industrial sector, in the energy sector, get them excited about it and helping, they will work hard in making those things happen. And the other exciting thing too is what we work on within Michigan State is bringing in students not just from engineering but from other areas. And if you look to, and I'll put on my professor hat and researcher hat for a second, if you look at the research in education, you'll see that diversity, having diverse backgrounds and having experts, especially from diverse backgrounds, allows you to come up with more innovative solutions. So I just speak to this, the workforce is out there. You just need to find them and motivate them. The next thing, and one of the final things I'll leave with, when we go to facilities, industrial facilities, there is always one person, typically director of operations or somebody that's been there for 20, 30, 40 years. Those people know everything about every facility. They can tell you what that is and when that was purchased and how it operates. Those people are the people we need to reach, and those people are the people we need to inspire in order to make things happen in our industrial facilities. They know how financial decisions are made, they know what happens, they know how different systems work, typically because they've been there and they've worked those jobs. If we can engage those people, we can make things happen. And the last thing I will leave you with, and you've heard this as a part of every other presentation, is working together. Now, we're all gathered here today to work towards climate solutions, and that's very, very powerful. We're all coming from different backgrounds. We're all working towards a common goal. Now, within our Industrial Assessment Center program, we work directly with facilities, we work with the companies, but there's lots of opportunities beyond that, like what we see here today, to collaborate and to bring experts, bring different companies together to come up with and share knowledge and come up with solutions to support this. So if you haven't heard it enough today already, I would just say the same thing as several of the other speakers. Collaboration, sharing knowledge, sharing advice, and providing objective information is really where it's at to make things happen. And so I'll leave you with this picture. This is my inspiration, is the students that we work with. This is our current cohort of students within our Industrial Assessment Center program. And they are the people that will work in these areas in the future. And so if there's nothing else that can inspire you, is that there's many students that work towards these types of things every day, and they will help make the climate change solutions happen. So thank you.